Hey, everyone. Welcome to From the Kitchen Table. We are live at the Fox Studios, not at our kitchen table. I'm here with my co-host for the podcast, my partner in life, and my wife, Rachel Campbell-Steffi.
You have another co-host today.
I do.
So we had a little bit of it was bad weather in Jersey. They decided to make the schools
Half
day. But we had plans. I was filling in for Ainsley. I had Barney. We're doing our podcast here. Anyway, Valentina's joining us this morning because, it's just that kind of a day. So if you hear squawks in the background, that's who it is. It's Valentina.
We call this a family-friendly show.
It is a family-friendly show. So anyway, Sean, this has been a tapping. This has been a massive week for our family. You have launched your new show, The Bottom Line with Dagan and Duffy, on the Fox Business Channel, 6 p.m. You're competing with Brett Baer.
The Goliath.
The Goliath, right?
And also with CNBC as well. But,
yes, and you're beating CNBC.
Yeah, we had the third. So our launch night was Monday night at 6 p.m., as you said, Eastern. And we had the third highest rated business show on a business network in the country that night. So that was actually a very cool day to launch. And I got to tell you, I'm having so much fun with Dagan.
Yeah.
I knew her a little bit. She'd interviewed me when I was in Congress. I was giving her a hard time. She was like, she would come at me hard, I thought. We've had more fun together, and she's so smart and so nice. So it's been great. But
I've known her for a long time too, because I've often done, kind of got my start here at Fox, and at Fox on Outnumbered and on Maria Bartiromo's show. So I got to know Dagan quite well, and she is one of the nicest people. A really kind heart, loves her family, taking care of her parents. I mean, that's the kind of person she is, and it's really great seeing you guys together. The show has been really fun. And it's just, I love that you guys are taking business issues and you're making them very kitchen table-y and accessible to everybody. And it's been great.
One thing you may not know about Dagan is she knows sign language. So we're doing some sign with Valentina, who's here today. So she's like, this is how you say mommy and daddy. So we're kind of
Valentina's learning sign. And yes. So Dagan and Valentina have been communicating. And I saw Dagan outside your office, and Valentina was giving lots of hugs. Every producer of your show got a hug from Valentina, which was really nice.
It was a lot of fun.
So
if you haven't seen it yet, tune in. It's at 6 p.m., 5 Central. And, we're covering a lot of the political issues, but those political issues that have those themes that affect our kitchen table, which are really business issues. So
it's been a big week for you, but it's been a big week for the Duffy family because Evita has been doing some reporting down in Chicago, and Tucker Carlson and his show took note of what she was doing down there, really giving shining a spotlight on a very hardworking Latino community inside the city of Chicago and what they're struggling with. Namely, she took the angle from the side of some of the tamales vendors. So I'm going to talk to you about what happened there, Sean, because I kind of have the inside scoop. Now, Evita does not speak Spanish. So when she went down there, she conducted these interviews with another vendor who spoke, one of the few that spoke English and Spanish. So they did that. And then when all the footage came back, I had to help her translate a lot of it, make sure all the captions were right. So I spent hours with her doing that. So I know the story very well from the mouths of the vendors themselves. And I have to tell you, it was just heartbreaking. These are women and men, most of them women, who get up, they cook and make tamales, through the night. And then they take their food at 3 a.m. They set up their stands and they sell to all the day workers that are there in Chicago, the ones that go and are on building sites and landscaping and doing the hard lifting all over the city of Chicago. They want to get their tamales so they can store them for lunch. Some of them eat them for breakfast. And here we go. We're getting some notes brought into us here. If you hear all this rustling paper, that's Valentina. And so these vendors are, there's gangs in a neighboring neighborhood that are coming over to this Latino neighborhood, harassing, all the citizens. But in particular, these vendors, tamales vendors, are very vulnerable because some of them have food trucks, but many of them just have a little table. They're out there in the cold. It's freezing at this time of year in Chicago. And these gangsters are coming up to them, taking all their cash, scaring the heck out of them, pointing guns to the heads of these, moms just trying to make a little bit of money. And the mayor of Chicago learned what was happening, and she had a solution.
They're robbing them, right?
They're robbing them of of all their cash, their purses. They said they'll come, they'll take their cash, they'll rob the customers as well. And so finally word gets back because nobody's doing anything. There's not enough cops in Chicago, not enough at least patrolling this poor neighborhood. And Lori Lightfoot gets asked about this, and her solution to this problem is, well, why don't the vendors just go cashless? That's the solution to this problem.
Which,
isn't possible when you sell tamales for like $3.
But if you're out of touch and you don't know how people operate in their lives, that might make sense. It's like, well, don't use cash. Use your credit card.
Yeah.
Use your Apple Pay. That makes sense to Lori Lightfoot. But if you actually are in the community, you would recognize a lot of these people are illegal. But a lot of them are, most of them are just poor. And if you're poor, it's really hard to get a bank account. So you can't get a debit card. You can't get a credit card. You probably don't have an Apple iPhone. And so these people are like, listen, that's the dumbest idea. We only deal in cash because our customers
want cash.
Only deal in cash. And what's fascinating, though, is instead of, again, looking at the root cause of the problem, taking a line from Kamala Harris, the root cause is there's too much crime. You need more cops on the street. You need to put bad people who put guns to others' heads and rob them. They need to go to jail and jail for a really long time. But if you're weak on crime and let these thugs run rampant, you have a solution that says just don't use cash.
So what the vendors were telling Evita was that basically these people will rob them if they get caught, if they even get caught. They're out on the streets within 24 hours. And so what's happened is a really interesting thing. There's not enough cops on the street. There's who wants to be a cop? And, the recruitment is so low. Who wants to be a cop in Chicago where you're not supported? You can't do your job. You can't do your job. You're not supported. And I'm sure that Lori Lightfoot's probably making sure her nicer neighborhoods where she lives and her friends live are patrolled. So this little immigrant community where there's not a lot, they don't have a lot of political voice, are being neglected. And so what they've had to resort to, Sean, is to create their own patrolling. So, some of them are the sons and husbands of some of these vendors, and they've created what they call the brown berets. Brown meaning, their own skin, but they also wear a brown beret so they can be identified. And they've been trying to patrol the streets at these early dark hours where so many of these moms and dads are selling their tamales, and they've depended on that. But in addition to that, they're so desperate that the Latin gangs have said, well, this is our neighborhood because the ones robbing them are coming from another neighborhood. So they've offered their protection. And these people are so desperate, they're taking protection from the Latin kings.
So, but they're probably paying the Latin kings to protect them.
I don't know if the Latin kings are doing it like that or if the Latin kings just have some pride like, hey, this is our neighborhood. You're not going to come in here. They're gangbangers. They're so in any case, the bottom line is that see, I'm using your show name a lot here. Bottom line is that these neighborhoods are turning into the third world, neighborhoods that these people came from. Because as you know, in Mexico and El Salvador, where the cartels are powerful, they also provide the protection that the police force can't provide.
These liberals tell us that they want to have a more civilized society, a more civilized community where you can be compassionate and let people get a second and third chance. They should be released after committing a crime without any cash bail. They get a sentence. The sentence is really small. And they think that's going to make society better. And to your point, Rachel, this is uncivilized.
Yeah.
This is the Wild West.
That's what one of the vendors said. He said, this is the Wild West. And by the way, in a community meeting, they said there was a community meeting. Some chief of police came and they said, well, you guys have guns to protect yourself. We want to have guns to protect ourselves. And they said, well, you can't because
only the gang members and cops can have guns.
Right. Well, they said because you're not citizens. Some of you aren't citizens. But the truth is, really, it's very difficult to have a gun in Chicago unless you are a cop or unless you're a criminal and you got one.
When you talk about root causes, the root cause of this is far deeper than Democrats pitching civilization when it's uncivilized.
Yeah,
it's that through the course of the last decades, we have taught people in our school system. We truly have been wokeifying them. Not we, but the culture has been wokeifying people in these cities for a long time, to the point that voters will accept this. They'll say this is an acceptable form of government, an acceptable form of law enforcement in my community, and I'm going to vote for Lori Lightfoot again. And by the way, a Republican, even a nonpartisan person, an independent who ran for mayor in Chicago, doesn't have a shot at winning.
No.
That's how deranged and delusional the voters are. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. But if my Republican Party was that and Democrats were offering law and order, I'm like, I'm sorry, maybe I'll come back to the Republican Party. But today I'm a Democrat because they're going to protect my family, my community, my job, my livelihood. I'm with them because you look at basic needs. Being safe in your community is one of the fundamental basic needs of a civilized society.
Well, I think that's why Lori Lightfoot, maybe she doesn't want to do this. And what she does and what she specializes in is stirring up racial tension. And they've been able to convince these communities that the real problem are all the racists out there. I think people are starting to wake up. Unfortunately, in this little neighborhood, these are very politically, not powerful people. And it was, like I said, very heartbreaking. I'm super proud of Evita. You don't often get people going into these Latino communities. And again, hard working. One of the vendors said, we don't want welfare. We want to work, but we need a safe environment to cook and sell and do the things that we do. As you know, Hispanics are the most entrepreneurial demographic in the country. This is a fact. They start businesses
this all the time from Rachel.
I'm telling you, it's true. This is part of our culture. They start businesses at 3 times the rate of any other demographic. You talk about small businesses. They are natural conservatives in this way. Unfortunately, in this neighborhood, they're suffering. And as Evita said in her very excellent piece on Tucker Carlson, she said, these people came here for the American dream, and Lori Lightfoot is serving up a Chicago nightmare. So kudos to Evita Duffy for shining a spotlight on these people who need this attention.
Valentina does not like this story, I guess, because
she is like, there is so much going on in this podcast. Like, this is actually a great way for people to understand what family dinner is like at our table, or just hanging out and talking.
A nugget of our life.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's a lot going on with you.
March on.
It's a lot.
All right, next topic. What do we have?
Okay, so listen, this is one that I'm really excited about. So Ron DeSantis is at a press conference, and he's by the way, he's somebody who's saying we need to deal with TikTok and the Chinese, but he also made a comment about kids with phones in schools. And so he's talking just like a regular parent, because, whenever I see, kids filming, sometimes I'm glad the kids have the phones or filming their woke teachers. But for the most part, I'm like, why do they have phones in school? What's happening here? And so he said, I think that we should have a policy where there are no phones in schools. Have the kids put their phones in a basket at the end of school, or maybe even during break, they get to, send out a few texts, but there's no reason why kids should have phones in school. Meanwhile, this woman, I can't remember her name, and I wish I could remember her name. She works for MSNBC. She tweeted out a clip of that news conference of Governor Ron DeSantis saying that. And then she basically said, see, he's an authoritarian. Ron DeSantis is authoritarian when he's actually just being a parent. And your thoughts, Sean?
Well, so I look at this story, and when we were growing up, we didn't have phones, number one. We didn't have phones in school.
We didn't even have phones when we were dating. That's how old we are.
I know. When we did the real world, we had like pagers back in the day. That's like the 90s.
Did you page me?
I don't. Maybe. You probably didn't call me back in those days. And I think that first of all, I think that it's an opportunity to cheat in school.
Sure.
Sure. But I think that you look at the social skills of kids, and they're not great. They know how to operate in their phone, but when you take their eyes off the phone and make them engage with the world, they kind of aren't very good.
Yeah.
And so wouldn't it be great to say, we're here to learn, and we're not going to learn in our phones. We're going to learn from each other and from our teachers and from our textbooks. And then the great times in schools are when class is out and you have the 5 minutes or 4 minutes.
No.
Valentina's going to pull the light down over here. She's going to destroy our little studio here. But she's out of control. But that 5 minutes,
I can see the producers. So she's pulling on a cord, and the producers are in the glass.
Whoa.
Going, whoa. Okay, you're here with mommy.
This is the disaster of a podcast.
All right.
No, but but that 5 minutes between the time that you're between classes, how many people did you talk to? You talked about what you might have learned, what happened in class, who asked a dumb question, like that. That social at lunch period, everyone's talking, and it's great. It's a great part of the memory of school and great part of socialization.
Just a lot less socializing. I agree.
And
with you.
and just the last point on this is there's so much bullying today that happens on social media. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if you had a break from all of that during the school hours?
Well, you bring up a good point because there are studies that have come out just even in the last week, some pretty definitive studies about the mental health of young people.
Yeah.
And parents, actually, they polled parents, said, what are you most concerned about with your kids?
Now, dad duty now.
Yeah, it's dad duty. They asked, what are you most concerned about with your kids? And they said, I'm most concerned that my child might pull the light down in the podcast. That's not what they said. They said their mental health of their child. And so I think that it's not a coincidence that you have phones being introduced to young people and the mental health of young people deteriorating, parents noticing. By the way, unions fighting
I'm going to give Valentina my phone.
Yeah, exactly. As we're talking about the phone. Is she looking at herself? Okay, but can I bring up another point about this that was interesting? The woman from MSNBC who said that Ron DeSantis is an authoritarian is probably more than likely, I would bet Valentina on the fact that MSNBC lady was absolutely pro-vaccine mandates, doesn't care about health liberty, is probably more than likely supported shutting down schools, shutting down churches, shutting down businesses. These people on the left are authoritarians. But when a parent who happens to be a governor says, maybe we shouldn't have phones in school, which resonates with normal parents, they call him an authoritarian.
But also, Ron DeSantis is giving more freedom to more people. If you want to wear a mask in Ron DeSantis' Florida, you could have. If you didn't want to, you didn't have to. Yeah. He lets people keep more of their money because there's not a state income tax.
That's right.
They said the same thing with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump did more to give power back to people, power back to states, to local governments. He decentralized power. Ron DeSantis has decentralized power, but for a few things. I mean, if you look at what he's done in schools, also in regard to CRT, he has said, listen, we're going to have a state review because we think that some of these schools are out of control, which make now he's taking power from the local communities. But those school boards were teaching
queer theory to like third graders. Come on. Exactly. I mean, like, there's just no need for that.
They're talking political issues.
Yeah.
And we don't use our state money to teach politics in our school or indoctrinate our kids. So, I mean, listen, I served with Ron in the House. He has been a remarkable governor.
Yeah. He has his pulse on what people are thinking and doing, and he actually takes action. Yeah. He actually takes action and implements policies.
Fearless.
Yeah. Took on Disney and their woke stuff, taking on this curriculum and saying simple things like, maybe we should. I mean, that's really not that controversial to say you shouldn't have phones in school. The other thing I want to mention about.
But on that, I think for kids, they're like, no, I want my phone, right? Because they're addicted to their phone.
Yeah.
But I think most parents who see their kids' addiction to their phone go, hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah, give them a break for 8 hours of the phone, for sure.
Break the addiction.
Sending
them to rehab school.
And I think one of the things that you and I have done for ourselves, I mean, we're not, look, Sean's entertaining Valentina.
But Valentina's got the cameras on and she's watching herself.
She's watching herself.
She loves herself.
But here's the deal. We have 9 kids. When kids started having phones, our oldest, Evita, our son, Jack, they wanted phones. And I think around 8th, 9th grade, we let them have a phone. And we thought, you and I reassessed. We always say the best part about having 9 kids is you get a lot of do-overs. And boy, did we.
Get it wrong, then get it right.
That's right. So when the 4th, is she the 4th?
5th.
She's the 5th?
Yes.
Did it take us that long to figure this out?
The 5th child, we got it right.
The 5th child, we got it right.
We're slow learners.
We're slow learners. Well, you know what? The effects, we didn't really start to see the impact of it. So that child, our Paloma, she is in 9th grade. She does not have a phone.
Does not.
She begs for a phone. if she wants to call her sister, who she's really close to, who's now a freshman in college, she has to borrow my phone to call her, but she does not have a phone. And we have no regrets about it. And she will complain and say everybody else in her life has one and we're weird. But we don't care. We learned our lesson. We don't think it's healthy. There's no need for her to have it at this moment right now.
The kids make all kinds of promises. And I feel like, listen, you love your kids. Like, I promise, Dad, I won't get social media. I won't be on the different social media apps. And I need to be able to call you if something goes wrong. All kinds of things they'll tell you and promise you.
Yeah.
But in the end, once they get it, it's like saying, I'll be responsible with crack cocaine. I'll be good with heroin. And you're like, okay, just use it responsibly. It's like,
just use the crack responsibly.
It's really addictive.
It is highly addictive.
And you give it to them at a time where they can't manage it, and the time suck from school and from their families and even from their friends is a very real problem. And so I hope more parents don't take 5 kids to learn this. They can learn it on kid 1 or kid 2, and just know that.
Can I give you a tip on how to make it happen, though?
The pressure is real.
The pressure is real, and exactly this. Here's something you could do to alleviate the pressure. Get to know the parents of some of your kids' friends, and then make a pact. Us 5 parents, us 3 or 4 parents, we are going to not let our kids have a phone. And so then when your kid says, and a lot of times parents do it because they don't want their kid to feel left out, right? So,
which, by the way,
I get that. There's a lot of social interaction that happens there, a lot of planning for events and stuff. But if those 4 girls, maybe they just have a flip phone, so they can't get on the social media apps, they can call each other. But much better if you unite together. And therefore, when your kid goes, I'm the only one. Well, that's not true. Mary and Jane and
Billy
Sydney
and Bob.
and Billy and Bob, their parents don't let them have a phone too.
And the time to do that is not when they're in 8th grade. Now, when they're in 7th grade, if you kind of know you're in a stable location, it's like we're raising our family here. Other families, it's in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade, to go, hey, when 4 or 5 years down the road, when we start getting real pressure, let's stick together and wait until our kids are much older. And whether it's going to be your junior year, maybe it's your senior year.
I was going to say, even if you're in high school, if your kid's in high school, if you can still do it. You're still the parent. You still pay the bills. You still have the right as a parent to do that. But it will be easier for you if your child's best friends are also in the same boat. And maybe you can do the educating of the other parents. I mean, the stats are out there. If you look at the psychology, they're looking at mental health. You see, kids' mental health is pretty stable. Introduction of phones, it starts decreasing. It's obvious what's happening to their emotions and to their self-esteem.
So here's a tool to get around it as well. They need to be maybe on social media because that's the way they're all communicating. So we have a family computer in the house. We have an Apple computer. It's not far off of the kitchen. And our little Paloma, who doesn't have the phone, she's in 8th grade. No, she's a freshman. She thinks she's really kind of crafty, that not doing something that we don't know. Like, she'll go in there, and for a while she'll sign on to, I don't know what account she's on. I should know that. I don't, and that's a problem. But she'll then talk to her friends or email her friends, or sometimes
on a Google chat,
or Google Meet her friends.
Yeah, Google Meet.
But I know how long she's in there, and she doesn't
who she's with,
and she doesn't take that to bed with her. She
No.
doesn't wake up with it. When we're eating dinner, she can't grab it and use it. It's like she might go in there and think she's really sneaky.
I'm doing my homework in here.
Yeah, exactly, for a couple hours. But it's a way to go. You might have some access on the family computer, but you can't live your life with this device. And I think that's a kind of
good
a simple
on
medium.
Ron DeSantis. Good on Ron DeSantis. I'm glad. And by the way, glad he's standing up to it, and glad he's exposing these hypocrite liberals who are the ones who shut down our country and forced people to inject their bodies with an untested drug, or at least didn't go through a long-term study. Those people are now exposed because they're calling Ron DeSantis an authoritarian for just being a good parent. Last topic, Sean. We're going to do this really quickly, but I think it's really important. Some really sad news. Louisiana State University had a student. Her name was Madison Brooks. She was at a bar out with her friends, presumably. They were getting wild drunk. She had an alcohol level that was, by the way, if you're hearing quiet, it's because Valentina went into the arms of our producer.
She's giving her a hug.
She's getting a hug, and she left the studio. Oh, it's so peaceful. I think we'll have to keep going. This might be a date night.
Can I say one more thing? So now the school's calling us to probably say school's going to close down right now, and the kids are going to come home early. And we'll have to
At the other one, yeah, that other group of kids. I'm going to end this podcast soon because I'm going to have to leave. I just want to say this. This was a terribly sad story. If you have a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in college, as we do, this is like your worst nightmare. So she gets drunk. For some reason, she's in a sorority. None of her sisters are there. None of her friends are with her. She's stumbling out. She agrees to get a ride with some guys that she met in the bar.
She was so drunk, she was falling off her stool.
She was falling off her stool.
She made bad decisions. I think everyone can look through their youth and go, we all made bad decisions, and by the grace of God, we're still here. So I don't want to throw stones, but she was making some bad decisions.
She, of course, and I think her parents would agree that she made some bad decisions. But what happened to her was absolute evil. She gets into the car with these 4 men.
Three or four?
It was 4 males. 4 males. One has not been identified yet. One was 17. One was 28. The other was 22. I don't know the age of the one that has not been identified yet. But in any case, 2 of them sodomized her in the back seat, one after another. And then at some point, she must have come to. I don't understand the timeline, but she decides that she wants to get out of the car, and she calls an Uber. They let her out in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. She's drunk as all get out, and she's kind of stumbling around. And when the Uber comes to get her, she gets struck and killed by the car because it's
by the
dark.
Uber driver, right?
Yeah, I believe by the Uber driver. But in any case, and there it is. And I think, this morning when I was on Fox and Friends, I interviewed one of her high school friends who described what a kind-hearted, wonderful girl she was, that this girl that I interviewed had been bullied and had a really tough time socially. And this Madison Brooks, who died so tragically and in such an evil fashion, that she was an emotional support to her and really wants everyone to remember her for that. I also saw a lot of the Instagram pictures of her family. She has beautiful parents. She has 2 younger brothers that she's clearly very close to. This is a family's nightmare. And the reason we're telling the story is I think there's a lot of lessons for young people. I'm certainly going to send this story to my freshman girl who's going to school over in Texas, because this could happen to any girl. As you said, Sean, all of us have been in college, have, drank more than we thought we were going to drink. Who knows? Somebody also could have spiked her drink with something. We don't know what happened. But the point is, you need to be very careful. You always should have your friends with you. Never be alone drunk. If you're a young woman, never, ever be alone drinking. And not have your friends with you to take care of you, and never, ever agree to get into the car. Now, I don't believe she probably knew what she was doing when she got in that car. Her alcohol level was so high, Sean, the authorities say that she probably should have died of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, her blood alcohol concentration was 0.319. So 0.319. The legal limit for driving a vehicle is 0.08. So what is that, 4 times the legal limit?
The boys in this case say that this was consensual, that, obviously they're not responsible for her death because she got struck by a car, but they're being held right now. They've been arrested because of charges of rape. They say, no, this was consensual. I find it very hard to believe that a young woman with that level of alcohol could possibly consent to this. And I will say the 17-year-old, who might be the key person, seems to be saying more and said, he did have sex with this girl and that he felt terrible because she was so drunk. So a little bit of an admission that this might not have been entirely consensual. Poor girl, poor family.
So we don't know the facts. We're going to come out. So we're commenting on this before we know everything, right? And was it in fact consensual or not? But then the question is, at this alcohol level, could she even give consent? And someone might rebut that and say, but did she order her own Uber? If she can order an Uber, could she give consent? There's a whole bunch of issues here. The bottom line is kids, especially girls, stick together, right? And we talk
and don't
to
drink. I know that sounds hypocritical.
But you have to be a realist.
I know, but you know
are
what?
Drinking.
I know.
You got to go, if you're going to do this, make sure you all sit together. And I know that our one who's a freshman, her friends go out together and they all kind of have this pact that no one leaves unless they all go together.
I know. And I say, don't drink. Yesterday, I was organizing in the basement some of the alcohol bottles. And I'm like, wow, I don't drink. You know that, Sean. I'm like, these bottles are getting low. And obviously, we were gone on New Year's. So right. I don't know what happened there.
We have some investigating to do.
We have some interrogating to do of our own in our house. But that is what young people do. They do experiment like that. And you see people, whether it's experimenting with drugs as well. Some of them are falling dead from fentanyl. They didn't try to get fentanyl, but their drug was laced with it. There are lots of things that can go wrong. But to young women out there who are in college, those young co-eds, young women, whoever you are, just know that your safety is
in numbers.
Your safety is in numbers, and try not to drink to the point where you're impaired, because anything can happen.
Even beyond impaired, you can't even think straight. I think
you make bad choices.
They deserve our prayers. This family does. I can't imagine the anguish and heartbreak here. And again, it's a lesson for, if anything good, this horrible story, this horrible situation this family is going through. The lesson is, taught your kids. And if you're a kid, taught your friends. About how you all stick together, because you don't want to have the same thing happen to you, or some other bad thing happen to you.
Yeah.
That can happen with a blood alcohol concentration.
Yeah, I heard the story and I'm like, where are her sorority sisters? Where are all her friends? Yeah. She shouldn't have been alone.
So listen, that is a sad story. And just by the way, we woke up this morning. Sadly, I had to wake up when Rachel did, because her alarm was too loud for me.
I had to fill in for Ainsley on Fox Friends. That's at 3 a.m. call.
And the first thing she said was, I read this story that I had to do the interview in the morning. I read the story and I couldn't sleep last night.
I read it before I went to bed, and I really regretted it because it was on my mind the whole night. And when I woke up, it was the first thing I thought about. And I thought, I'm going to forward this story to our girls because that's important for them to know.
Well, listen, we appreciate you joining us for this really crazy podcast with guest starring Valentina.
Yeah, I think she was the star of this podcast.
Papers crackling, squawking. It's made it interesting for us. It's kind of a hot mess here. From the kitchen table, it's a hot mess.
Tina, she's behind the glass. Therefore, you can't hear her right now. She's waving. She's so sweet.
Yes.
I wonder if in the post-production they'll be able to turn down her voice. I don't know if that's possible. That might take some production magic. We'll see.
We'll see. But listen, thanks for joining us on our podcast.
Hey, before we go, can I just say congratulations on your new show, Sean? I'm super proud of you. I know,
that.
It's a great show. It's a great time slot that you got. You and Dagan are a great team together.
I can tell you what, I'm grateful. And you say this a lot, but I'm grateful to be at Fox. I'm grateful that we get to do this podcast together at Fox. We have the freedom to talk about the issues that we like, that we're passionate about. The fact that Fox would have enough faith in me after being here for a couple of years to give me this platform with Dagan. This is the highest rated business network
in the country.
In the country,
and it's growing
with the highest rated news programming in the country. And so, Fox has been really generous and nice to our family that we get to work together like this.
Yeah.
And be together as a family.
Just think, you used to work at CNN. It's so much better at Fox.
It's a lot. Yes.
It's better at Fox.
I smile a lot more right now at Fox.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not going to bring into the family fight on how that happened, but I get a lot of "I told you so"s from Rachel.
That's true. It's so much nicer on the Fox side, and I am really grateful to Fox. They've given us, a lot of opportunities. As you can see from this situation today, it's a very family-friendly network and corporation. I remember when I was first pregnant with that little girl and I found out and I had to go tell my boss, and I told Sean, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go let my bosses know that I'm going to have 9 kids. I mean, how are they possibly, at the time we were living in Wisconsin, and I had to, come out here and, twice a month. And I just thought they're just, I have a complicated life. How can this network? And the first thing they said was, oh my goodness, congratulations. Let's get you into wardrobe and get you some new clothes. You're going to need that. And they were just so supportive, so family friendly. And then when you came onto the network, they've let us do a lot of stuff together. And now you have your own show, and it is fantastic.
What you see on air, they practice what they preach.
Yeah, it's a very family friendly network.
It's a great blessing. in the belly of the beast, New York. They do that. So
Yeah,
very cool.
it's a little. I'm going to say it's a little safe space.
Little safe space.
For conservatives.
With
By
Christmas
the way,
trees in front, American flags.
American flags, and yeah. Congratulations, Sean.
Thank you.
It is The Bottom Line with Dagan and Duffy at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Fox Business Channel.
Business Network, yes.
Make sure that you tune into the Fox Business Network
Come
at
check
6
us out.
p.m.
We have a lot of fun, good information flow. And I'm learning a lot of terms from Dagan that I've never heard before. So you can learn with me from all of her commentary.
Oh, yeah. I told Sean that.
Like pig potatoes. Okay?
Well, yesterday I was getting worried because I thought, did I catch a twang in Sean's voice? I'm like, you can't go country on me. You're a Midwestern lumberjack.
Well, first of all, I kind of have this habit of like, I can start to, I Hillary Clinton people, like I will start to copy their inflection.
That's what Hillary
And it's like,
did
are
at
you
that
starting
church.
to talk with
Yes.
a twang? I'm like, I don't think I was. But if I do, please remind me, text me and say,
What did
"Stop
What did
twanging."
Hillary say? We have to put that in there. I'm so bone tired.
Right.
She did.
At a black church in the South, I'm like, come on.
Oh, yeah.
So if I Hillary Clinton it, Rachel promises to text me.
I promise to bring him back to his
Stop.
Midwestern roots if he starts hanging out with Dagan too much.
I love it. Well, listen,
right.
if you like our podcast, if you like this hot mess of a podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to From the Kitchen Table. Wherever you get your podcasts, we would appreciate it. And we love joining you, whether it's from our kitchen table.
Or here at the Fox Studios,
Yeah,
which
either
we
way.
call, it's kind of a daycare today.
Daycare today.
All right.
Anyway, have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.